Ground and pound. Get ready for an MMA showdown. Now, the ultimate Octagon Insider, Sean and Tristan DuCross.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. It's been a minute, but the Sports Warriors are live and locked in for episode 196.
Man, it feels good to be back in the seat, doesn't it? Mics are hot, energy's up, combat sports. It did not wait for us, did it?
Not even close. While we're out, Aldo retires. Islam says, I'm done at lightweight. And Canelo vs. Crawford just took a detour.
Man, yep, this week we are talking about chaos in boxing, Madison MMA, and oh yeah, Holm is stepping back into the boxing ring. Didn't even see that coming, did you?
You know how we do it. Real talk, real fight talk. Let's break it down and get caught up. Welcome back to the Sports Warriors. Let's go.
Man, so Sean, first up, right? We had MMA breakdown so far that's going to be taking the effect, right? So first up, Sean, let's talk about how legit Jack's boxing was. Who can even challenge him now?
So when you look at Jack Del, I'm going to try to say his name. It's been a minute since trying to figure out these guys' names. So Jack Della Mandela Lena is, I guess, how you would say it, against Bilal Muhammad. JDM is better what many people have been calling him. You can't complain about what he did. He did something that many people thought wasn't going to be possible against Bilal. And you look at him, and he TKO'd him in the second round. He became the UFC welterweight champion of the world. I mean, that shocked a lot of people. It caught a lot of people off guard, Tristan. So when you look at that, he knocked off a 10-fight win streak by Bilal.
When you're looking at Bilal's 10-fight win streak, right, it matched up perfectly well, wouldn't you say? When you're talking about the 17 fights that JDM had. When you're looking at this fight, we were seeing what the future is of the division, were we not? That's the interesting part of this whole entire matchup now, is that we saw what Bilal did, what he could have done, and now you see the future of the division. I mean, how good is it right now for JDM's even at his boxing, at his level now in this division?
And that's one thing that I wanted to ask, Tristan, is just how good his boxing is. Because I feel like a lot of people slept on him, and a lot of people were iffy about what was coming from him in this bout. And you look at his stats. He's a high-level striker. He has elite head movement. The guy lands 6.7% of his strikes. That's how good this guy is. So is it, at the end of the day, should have people slept on him? No, not really. And it boggles my mind about why so many people were on this guy that he seriously had no shot.
Sean, when the only weakness you have is getting touched early, he's been untested versus elite grapplers. So we have to figure out, is it a grappler issue, or is it just because he prefers to stand up and box? Right now, Sean, how do you see JDM and where he's going in his trajectory? Where do we see him? What's his opponents that are possibility next?
It's one of those things that you look at Colby Covington. And he's the first one that stands out to me right now, just pure based on the simple fact that of the striking ability. You look at Colby Covington, and he doesn't like the grapplers. He doesn't like the guys that grind him into the ground. So if you want to see Colby Covington come back and compete at a high level, a guy like JDM makes sense because of his standing up, striking prowess. It would be opposing an intriguing fight. Do I think at the end of the day, Tristan, that Colby Covington has a chance of beating him? Absolutely not. If Belial couldn't beat him, I don't think Colby Covington would do that. But the thing about Colby is that he brings...
And we're going to talk about the word chaos later.
Right?
He brings the draw. He brings the, oh my goodness, what is this guy going to say? What is he going to do type of aspect to a showdown. That's intriguing. Gilbert Burns, another guy that it could go either way. It could be intriguing on multiple levels. So you could go so many different ways with JDM and what is next and where is it going.
It's funny that you talk about what's intriguing, right? Is this too soon? What does it do to the lightweight division, Sean? If he moves up, what happens? Volk is up there. Sean, if Volk couldn't stop him, would JDM's power be enough simply to get him through the division? I mean, he called out, so Makachev eyes the welterweight division. He ended up calling out GM post-double fight to become a double champ.
Well, he vacated the title. And immediately said that he was moving up. So, yeah, is that another intriguing fight? Absolutely, it's another intriguing fight. You just said it. He called out JDM. So you look at that. What you got so many unique fights that can come up and that can go either way. It remains to be seen about what's going to happen with Islam. It remains to be seen what's going to happen with JDM. It was very caught off guard to see that Islam vacated the title because, yeah, there was immediately discussion about right after the fight about being a double champ. And then the very next day, Tristan, it was announced that, hold up, wait a minute. But wait a minute, let's talk about the next one, okay? The next biggest highlight that came from that night. Jose Aldo, he retires. Where does he rank? What does his future look like?
As you can see, Sean, we have Jose Aldo right there in front.
That's funny. I didn't know that we had that.
I didn't even know we had that either. But here he is. Jose Aldo announces his retirement. So, I was indifferent on this fight. Because when you look at the fight, he looked tired in the second round. He came out a little bit towards the end. I still think he had more left in the tank. I just don't think UFC gave him the right fights, though. That's my question.
And that was one of the questions that I raised too, was did he get enough good opportunities to compete at a high level all the time? There was a lot of gray area when it came to Jose Aldo that left a lot of people questioning about, is he a Hall of Famer? Is he not a Hall of Famer? And you look at the guys that he beat up, Tristan, Uriah Faber, Frankie Edgar twice, Chad Mendez twice, Korean Zombie, Ricardo Lamas, Cub Swanson, the list goes on. On paper, Tristan, does that sound like a Hall of Fame type of career?
Yeah.
Like on paper, that's good. Those are very solid opponents. They were very capable fighters in that era. But when you look at where everybody else has fought in the UFC and who they fought that's been world champion, those guys rank like middle of the road.
Sean, if you're looking at against what he has done he was KO'd by Conor in 13 seconds. Never got a rematch. Struggled in title fights. That's why you name all these players. But in reality, did he lack the proper send-off against Connor's?
And that's the thing. So, if you talk about a potential Hall of Fame career, Tristan, the stigma is that 13-second KO. The epic Conor McGregor cinema in where he said, precision beats power. Remember that?
Yes.
And that was perhaps the best strike that I think anybody's ever seen that nailed the right place at the right time that put him down. So, yeah, I completely see that. To me, that hurt his legacy because of the fact he didn't get the Conor McGregor rematch. If Dana White had the best interest in Jose Aldo in that moment, Tristan, right away he should have regurgitated that and sent it right back down the pipe and said, you know what, we're going to run it back.
Yep.
Instead, he swept it underneath the rug, and they went about it all over again. And then he was left on an island thinking about what's next.
Right.
So, if he probably rematches Conor McGregor in that moment, and we get that epic rematch, and say Jose Aldo runs it back, right? And he avoids that one shot, and he stands and trades with Conor McGregor, and he unleashes those lethal leg kicks and the combinations that he was notoriously known for. Who's to say that second fight doesn't go Jose Aldo's way? Because that was one punch, that was one lucky moment. So, could we be talking about Jose Aldo, yes, having a Hall of Fame career because he came back, he beat Conor McGregor, he defended that one loss that hindered his career. Then it kind of looks on paper that those middle-of-the-road names that he beat over and over and over again look a little bit better because he beat one of the biggest names at that time in mixed martial arts. Completely changes the perception of how people view him. He still has a lot of highlights. Don't get me wrong. Still a fantastic fighter. Don't get me wrong. And you can compare this, Tristan, to Major League Baseball, okay? There are guys that get into Major League Baseball Hall of Fame with the bare bones of numbers.
This is true.
That you subsequently like, yeah, I probably wouldn't put him in. But they put him in. So, is he going to get into the Hall of Fame? Unfortunately, yes. And the reason simply why he's going to get into the Hall of Fame, Tristan, is because when you think of UFC for a long period of time, you can't stop and not think about what Jose Aldo did, period, for the UFC and how much fan support he had in his era. And we got to remember, UFC's Hall of Fame is all about like era-based. So it's an interesting thing. It serves up an interesting debate.
But my guy, here we are. First segment down. Second segment, it's a boxing breakdown. So much more coming back with the DuCross Brothers on our return show. And let me just tell you, it feels a little good, doesn't it?
It does. A little bit minor hiccup trying to get our flow back.
Right.
Trying to get the flow going.
We got to figure out the whole mic situation so we can talk and hear each other and stuff like that. So we'll figure out that flow, that dynamic too, back and forth. But in the meantime, your boys are back. We're the DuCross Brothers. Cross that line with us. We appreciate the love, and we tip our hats to everybody that's tuning into us right now. But boxing breakdown's coming up. We got the Navarrete Suarez controversy, the Holly Holm versus Vega announced fight with MVP, Fisher and Allen 2. So sit tight. We'll be right back. Oh. I don't know why, but I was listening to that music for a second. We're the DuCross Brothers. I'm Tristan DuCross. Along my side, as always, is my partner, Crumb. That is Sean DuCross right there. As you can see, we are identical twins, and we are back in the building. Real fight talk, real talk. That's what we're always been about, and we are bringing it back to you full front. So don't get it twisted. Your boys are back. Don't understand why my audio was that low, but okay. So, Sean, as we get going, right, replay should be the standard in boxing, don't you think?
We've got to do better. We've talked about this before on a lot of our shows about replay in boxing, and it was no more apparent when we just had the fight with Narvate versus Suarez that ended in controversy. And again, it's surrounded around replay, Tristan, because there was an apparent headbutt that was called accidental, but if you would have gone to replay, it would have showed that it was not. So you've got to go ahead and see that when you look at it, the replay would have helped this fight's outcome because they deemed that it was not a punch. They deemed that, that the cut by above his eye was caused by a punch and not a headbutt, but you can clearly see on the replay that it was a headbutt. Why are we still going back and forth about replay? Every other sport has replay, Tristan. Every other system, except for boxing and UFC, uses only real-time judges, real-time moments, but they're human. Sometimes in the speed of an action, you can't always catch everything. And this was no different. So because of that, you have Narvate, who ended up losing. Now they went ahead and filed an appeal.
It is wild that we are to this point that we have to continue to talk about whether or not you should have replay in the game. This is wild to me because as you can see, Sean, in this era, that it doesn't matter, Sean, it doesn't matter what we are in, what sport, right? Instant replay has become a very focused point on a lot of stuff. They've bring it in baseball. They've brought it. It's in every other sport, but yet it's not in combat sports. And we've been in the front lines, right?
Right.
We are the ones that were front cage. We were the ones that were right there with blood spattered on us. We were the ones that were right there next to all the judges. Talking to all the judges, they're all indifferent. We know them. And that's fine. They say that it could take away from the real-time fight. I want to be correct in this because you and I being at the front and being up against the cage, we can understand what both of them are, or what replay can do, what replay can't do, right? I just don't think that as much as a personal feel and the eyes on the prize, that's where I'm indifferent. Why is there feedback? When you're looking at a monitor, you get a different perspective on the monitor than you do real time. Watching a real fight versus watching it on TV, wouldn't you say that it's different?
Oh, for sure.
So that's my only thing about replay versus non-replay in combat sports.
But the thing, though, is like, if you think about replay, Tristan, as that aspect, as that you're watching it on TV. If you can watch it on TV and you can pause it and you can slow it down, you should be able to do that no differently at ringside.
It hurts the drama.
How does it hurt the drama? How does it hurt the drama? It's no different than you watching it from TV and you're invested in the excitement, Tristan. You're invested in the moment. So, yeah, the atmosphere of being live and in person is different. We understand that. But at the same thing, Tristan, is that you look at the fact that every person, the commentators, some of the judges, they have a monitor in front of them. So they're watching it from a monitor. They're calling the action sometimes from a monitor, not just looking at the action. That's also part of another problem.
This is true.
So you look at everything else and you see, okay, if you can watch it from a monitor and describe that enthusiasm through a microphone to convey the audience, why is that any different? The replay is being used as a monitor. So if you can watch it from a monitor and you can make that call of like, dude, that's a headbutt, then why can't we pause it and throw it to replay to help out the ref? It's like watching wrestling, Tristan, and we've heard it all the time on the guys on Busted Open, especially Bully Ray, and where he's said numerous of times that one of the problems he has with AEW is the protecting of the refs. That the refs oftentimes get left out high and dry on AEW. It's no different here than protecting a boxing referee or a UFC referee for making a judgmental call that could cost a fighter a W, maybe as much as a life.
Who knows? So if you want to do better for the fighters and support the fighters, then pause for a second and just put the replay in. You're talking about the replay in boxing has been being discussed for over a decade and we still don't have it. Like, I don't get it.
It's like the World Boxing Council, the WBC, insinuated the use of instant replay in 2018 was to address controversial moments during fights.
So what's the problem?
Sean, when you're looking at mandated stuff, you continue to look at mandated for whatever reason. You cannot underneath any circumstance, force something onto a organization in some places if it's not mandated. And right now, the only place that exists is most of the time is in Nevada, which is in Las Vegas.
But Tristan, so you talk about Nevada being one of them, right? Okay. Let's talk about that instant replay was used back in the Tyson Fury bout. It was used in the Tyson Fury versus Usyk fight in 2024 by the WBC because the WBC isn't afraid to use it. So why can't we review right now as to this fight? They're going to go ahead and appeal it and see if it's overturned. Well, if you look at the replay, it's going to be overturned. But if you would have deemed that this was a headbutt, right, and it was illegal, one of two things would have happened. Either A, the fight would have been stopped and Navarrete would have been awarded the win, or B, you would have been deducted a point for an illegal headbutt. I'm assuming because the headbutt, the gash was too bad, that's why the fight was stopped. But sometimes, not oftentimes, is a cut bad enough to stop a fight. You put some Vaseline on it, you rub it in, you're good. Sometimes, yeah, in this case, maybe it was bad. But there are so many different layers to it. And it's much like in mixed martial arts, Tristan. When are we going to get replay consistently? And like MMA, when are we going to get a union for its fighters? Those are the two things I will continuously and always plug. Because it is ridiculous at the outcome. Now we got to switch it over. And we got to talk about the fact that we've got another fight card coming up, Tristan. And we got Caleb Plant. We also have Jermall Charlo back after a hiatus. So May 31st, you've got Caleb Plant versus Jose Recides, and then you got Jermall Charlo versus Tomas Lamana. You look at Caleb Plant, and he's been one of those fighters that had the love. He had the people that thought he was the next big thing. Then he goes in against Canelo and gets beat up by Canelo. And gets knocked off by Canelo. And then you look over and you're wondering about why is he taking this fight against Jose Recides? And you've got to be one of those people that has to think about the fact that, maybe it's about just a tune-up fight to get back to Canelo. But why would he be thinking about Canelo right now when Canelo is already thinking about Bud Crawford? And you look at Bud Crawford fight, and you're beginning to wonder if one of them is going in the wrong direction. Nothing like a live show. Bud Crawford, right? Mention Bud Crawford, but no. Caleb Plant using this fight as a tune-up to get to Canelo. I mean, dude, he's been off for 2 years. So a strong win gets him back in conversation. But Caleb Plant, he's gone through his own stuff of adversities, and I mean, he's still at least 2 fights away, Sean. Still 2 fights away. I mean, you could look at a WBC interim fight against Carlos Adams,
which is a mandatory title clarity.
That's for Charlo.
Oh, is that for Charlo? My
Yes. There's not really much else to say about Caleb Plant.
True.
Everything else goes ahead and talks about Charlo because, like you said, Charlo was the one out for 2 years, not Caleb.
Oh, that's right.
We're talking about the issues with Charlo, and Charlo has been one of those guys, Tristan, that has been, again, on the pedestal of if he keeps his head straight, he competes at a high level. But he's often finding himself in trouble. So my question to you was that in everything that we've been talking about is that if he wins, what's next? That's where everything else comes into play about where you mentioned Carlos Adams.
So for Charlo, Sean, so sorry, I'm just trying to get back to the swing of things. I had to get us back onto the screen.
And breathe.
Right. I'm trying to breathe, dude. I don't know why. For taking a run real quick, took a lot out of me for a second. So, dang. I know I'm old. Shoot. We just had our 40th birthday, but I mean, dang. Woo. Sean's like, please breathe. Okay. I'm trying to breathe.
But yeah, so you look at that. If he wins this fight after 2 years being gone, Tristan, it sets him up for potential fights at 160. Carlos Adams, which would be the WBC interim mandatory title fight contention fight. You'd also have a chance at seeing him maybe move up to 168.
And then he could face Caleb Plant.
Yeah, he could. He could, but would you want to see that fight? I think what everybody wants to see is like, okay, we just saw the Fatal Fury saga, right? Of all those standout names. The problem I think we've always had with Jermall Charlo is the fact that he doesn't take the big fights. The big fight that's on paper, if he moves up to 168, is the one that Canelo's ducking. And that's David Benavidez. If people don't know who David Benavidez is, go look him up. The guy's a savage. You'll understand why Canelo's ducking him, let's be real. So that would be an intriguing fight. Yeah, you know, Caleb, yeah, it's a name to stake his claim to maybe get a chance at competing against Canelo. But it's like we're placing right now about who's going to compete against Canelo before Canelo gets through Bud. Yes, we all know that Canelo is signed with Saudi. We all know that he signed a multi-fight contract with Saudi. We all know that. But he's got to get through Bud first. You guys are trying to position yourselves to get to Canelo, who may not get past Bud. Am I the only one seeing that?
It's fascinating if you think about it. And why I'm going there is because I want to title it to almost like WWE, right? There's one gentleman, and I'm going to say it because I like it. 4 letters, 1 word, yeet. You already have 2 challengers lined up. Like, you could already match this up and see who's going to win at this point. My issue in boxing is that you shouldn't or cannot do that by any stretch of the imagination. So when you look at Canelo and what he is doing, and then all of a sudden you look at the positioning where all these boxers think that they lie, in reality, Charlo still needs 1 big fight to even get into serious talks for Canelo.
And not get in trouble.
Stay out of trouble is more like it. But a win over LaManna, if he's serious, bro, he has to go after Adams. He has to go after Benavidez. Because if you look at it, Sean, in my eyes, Benavidez is still the dog in the fight. He is still that dog that I believe that he's going to be that. I'm sorry, love Bud Crawford, and I think that he's a good fighter. But seeing Benavidez in the way he fights and the fights that he has taken, something's there.
You talk about David Benavidez, right? And being a dog in the fight. Let me put this into perspective for you fight fans. You included, Tristan. When I see David Benavidez being mentioned in the level that he's being mentioned in, and in the conversation he's being mentioned in, and comparing and getting an opportunity to maybe fight Canelo, that fight reminds me of when everybody in the world wanted to see Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Mayweather when Manny was in its prime. Floyd didn't take that fight when Manny was in his prime. Floyd Mayweather took that fight, Tristan, when Manny was on his last legs, on his way out, when he was just maybe not necessarily a shell of himself, but he wasn't what he once was. We want to see, as fans, Canelo versus Benavidez before we see the end of Canelo. But right now, we're on the verge of the second coming of Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. Because who's to say if he could get past Bud Crawford? Bud Crawford is technically sound. He cleaned out an entire weight division, bro. And now he's going to finally get his chance to take off and dethrone Canelo, who's been perhaps the biggest boxing name in history since Floyd, since Manny Pacquiao, since Mike Tyson, since Muhammad Ali. Do I need to keep going? This guy lights up Cinco de Mayo every year.
Bud Crawford was left on the table. You were talking about Canelo. In my eyes, he barely got past his last fight. If he performs the exact same way that he does against Bud Crawford, that's over. That's game, set, match. And if that is the case, we won't see a Canelo versus a Benavidez. We won't. That won't happen. You can push that off to the paper. You can wait down the road. And yes, 100% it will become like a Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao situation. But he's going to be, well, what if in his prime? What if? That's going to be your topic. What if Canelo was in his prime versus Benavidez? That's going to be the tagline.
Now, Tristan, we've gone over time on this boxing segment because we hit our stride, I feel like. We got to go to a break here in a second to get ready to wrap out the show. But there are two things I want to touch on. Of course, we got to touch on the fact that Holm is coming back to boxing. It'll be brief, but we'll get to that. But when we talk about boxing, right, and you talk about the question marks, I heard it right after the Fatal Fury boxing event that had Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, and Devin Haney. I don't often agree with what Oscar De La Hoya always has to say. But one thing I will say that I agree with is when he took to social media and said that the only fighter that came to fight that night was Teofimo. Devin Haney didn't come to fight. Ryan Garcia didn't come to fight. Everybody seamlessly took a paycheck. Or then he went ahead and talked about Canelo. Is that he mentioned about Canelo not wanting to fight runners, but yet he fought a runner in Skull. Now he's going to fight Bud Crawford, who's not necessarily a runner. What type of Canelo are we going to get? That's the question I'm going to leave with everybody here. What type of fighter will we get Canelo versus Bud Crawford? What type of fight are we going to get, Tristan, with Holm returning after her 12-year hiatus to boxing and only having to focus on one entity and not multiple different styles like she did in mixed martial arts? She's going to be fighting on the Jake Paul undercard, mind you. Everybody knows who Holm is. But the thing that's interesting is that she signed a multi-fight contract with MVP Promotions. So this is not going to be her only fight. But she's freaking talking about wanting to fight for a title again. Against like a woman like Serrano. I like you, Holm. But girl, pump your brakes a little bit. you may have to sign another fight contract to get that fight. She may not get past Yolanda Vega. She may have 1 KO on her record, Tristan, but she's technically sound.
This is going to be a vastly interesting fight with Vega.
Don't write her off.
This could get her to another level. But we're going to go to a break, and we got Wrestling Breakdown next. And we'll wrap up the show with your boys, Sean and Tristan DuCross, the Sports Warriors. Go ahead, hit the love icon, drop us a little bit of praise or whatever you want in our chat room. Give us a little hate. We don't care. It's all good. But show us some love. Follow us. Subscribe to us. You know it. Our socials are all right here around us. So enjoy. Sit back. Wrestling Breakdown next. And then we will tap out for the night. Ooh-wee. Tristan DuCross on the one. Sean DuCross on the twos. We're the DuCross Brothers, the Sports Warriors. We crossed that line. We are back. Real talk, real fight talk with your boys. We are back. After, 3 long years, your boys got that itch. Your boys are back, hungrier than ever. You see what we're about. You know what we're about. Now we're heading into the Wrestling Breakdown because there's been a lot of wrestling stuff that's happening over the course of the week. But, Sean, we have to start off with one.
Oh, man, Sabu. That's sad. Like, when I got that, I immediately told her dad, like, dude, Tristan, Sabu passed away at 60. And the fact that I just saw him wrestle at GCW, the clips of him wrestling at GCW, so he went out the only way that he knew. The homicidal, the genocidal, Sabu went out in a barbed wire match against Joey Janela. Like, what? It looked awkward, but I mean, he at least he went out the same way, and then several weeks later he passed away. And it was interesting. It was one of those things that, like, I remember him in ECW. I remember watching him in ECW and fighting against the RVDs, the Triple Threat, You name it. He had some classics. He was the daredevil before there was a daredevil.
For him to go out the way he did, as many people know, or many people should know, Sean, is that when you look at the way his last match went, I don't know how I feel about that. And I say that because it was hard to watch. He had a last barbed wire match with Joey Janela at Joey Janela's event that had 2,000 people. So, when you look at his career, his body of work, we know he's had addiction problems. We know he hasn't been financially set. And to see that he had one last final fight and then he dies a day later. Like, was there something going on that nobody else realized, and that when he went into his final match, that maybe they knew something that nobody else knew, and that this was something that he had to do one last time?
I mean, I'd assume like maybe that he knew something health-wise was going on, and that he wanted to go out the way that he essentially started his career. And if that's the case, then bravo for him to being able to do it, and that he ended up passing weeks later. At least he could say that he did everything that he wanted to do. And like the best line here that I was going to give you was that it says it right there. Sabu was without Sabu, there is no Darby Allin, John Moxley, those hardcore bangers making the next level. He set the groundwork for them, for their moments, for the hardcore era. You can even subsequently say that if there was no Sabu in ECW, there is no GCW. Those guys all embody his style of work. Everything that ECW did back in the day, and some of those icon wrestlers, did it so guys can live now. So there is a place like a GCW. So those guys can change to become better and go to WWE or go to AEW and find a better living and find a better career. He was a trailblazer before there was even one. But that could be said about a lot of guys that came from ECW.
And that's why that kind of type of wrestling is still around.
And you talk about, Tristan, about wrestling being around. Let's talk about WWE Backlash. We talk about John Cena still being around. Randy Orton still being around. Those two guys are still competing at a high level. Forget John Cena is walking around as a 17-time world champion. Good, bad, or indifferent. Tristan, did we ever think Ric Flair's record was ever going to fall?
Unfortunately, yes. Because we're talking about Cena.
But before that, before we ever saw John Cena coming back, did you ever think that time would have ever come? No.
I did. And the only reason why is because every record is meant to be broken. And we just saw Wayne Gretzky's record get broken by Ovechkin.
You say that you saw that, but then be honest. Who is going to do it? If it wasn't going to be John Cena, you said you saw it. Who? Because to me and to everybody else in wrestling, it was non-existent. There was nobody that's in any title contention at this moment in WWE that could have gone that outside of Randy Orton. Randy Orton's the only one close. We weren't even talking about Randy Orton possibly chasing the title. So no, Tristan, I disagree, and I think every wrestling fan would disagree in that moment that you could not have seen that coming.
The only reason why I saw it coming was simply because he was at 16. And the fact of the matter that he was coming back, I knew damn well that I was like, oh, great. We've seen it. We saw it with the one reason I'm just going to be honest. The one reason why I saw it with Cena coming back doing his swan song, right, and ultimately why I thought he was going to break the 16 titles. The only reason why I thought about that was because I thought about Sting. So we saw Sting in AEW, his retirement, right? We complained about, hey, these wrestlers, if you're going to retire on your own terms in your own way, then unfortunately they have to go out on their own shield. So Sting went out as a champion, did he not?
Yeah.
So when he said this is his farewell, this is his last hurrah and stuff like that, and you started hearing the whole propaganda around it, right there, my switch clicked on and was like, man, they straight up going to give him the title.
Okay, so with that sentiment, then yes, I agree. But I saw that only last year. But before that, before his announcement of coming back, it was not there. I agree when he came back last year and talked about that one last run. Oh, we know exactly what that one last run was going to be. We knew it was the title.
Yep.
The writing was on the wall. I will give you that. And if any wrestling fan says that they didn't believe that John Cena was going to get that 17, you were shooting yourself in the foot. You best believe that WWE is going to put that title on him with good, bad, or indifferent. That's exactly what they did. Good, bad, or indifferent. How that ending was, how you feel about that ending. They put that title on the guy.
Yep.
Because he is their last real champion from that era.
But even a real champ, and we're going to run out of time here in a few minutes, is that Gunther went up against the hype man and Pat McAfee.
We could go a little bit longer with this. Like, dude, there's so much more to talk about.
There is on our first show back.
And you're telling me we're running out of time.
Yes. So we'll end it on the WWE Backlash, and we'll be back next week with more stuff. But, Sean, Cena beats Orton one last time. That era is being pushed back. It's going to be interesting to see who's going to take that title off, who's going to give him the rub. But Gunther submits McAfee and chokes him out, but yet McAfee still looked great and then puts himself over at the announce table. I don't know why we need to make him bigger than what he already is.
I agree. It's one of those things that's weird. But I guess Tristan wants to wrap up the show tonight. So we'll wrap up the show tonight. So everybody, like us, subscribe to us, click that subscribe button. We'll be back next Thursday. Next week's show, we'll have reactions from Fisher vs. Allen 2. The Double or Nothing breakdown of their full card as he approaches us. We'll give you more clarity on Canelo versus Crawford as it looks like we're going to go ahead and change venue. We'll probably maybe discuss about the NWA Crockett Cup results. We may take some of the topics we wanted to touch on tonight, bleed that over for next week. And then we'll continue to work our little connection, our little connectivity. But make sure you follow us on TikTok at The Sports Warriors. Follow us over there. Follow us on here for our live show. Follow us on Instagram, The Sports Warriors. Just follow us on all of our socials. Stay up to tune with where we're at. Hopefully we're back for good. Hopefully we don't have any more hangups. It looks like it may be a Thursday night thing. So thank you guys. Cross that line with us. Real talk, fight talk. With your boys, the Sports Warriors. Let's go. We're out. Tristan and Sean DuCross, the Sports Warriors. Until next time, enjoy.